Hey everybody, the other day we received a big box of Lego parts, so today we can continue working on the mountain, which is going to be right behind the campground there, in the center of the city, of course. When building the mountain, we split it into different sections, so one of the sections is behind Ninjago. This is where we're going to have like a large ridge, which is going to accommodate some of the additional Ninjago structures, that being the temples right over there. Now the campground, it sort of sits on like the foot of the mountain, so it's like a green slope. I think we need to continue this green slope after the campground, and it needs to transition into dark gray as we work our way upward. So there's not going to be as much space for a ridge on this side of the mountain just because I don't want it to go too steep abruptly. I don't think that really makes a whole lot of sense. So I think for now, we're actually going to start with this module right here. We're going to have to like brick build up. Oh man, it's going to take a lot of brick, but I just want to continue this. We need to get the background for the campground looking better than just a Technic substructure. So I essentially need to extract this giant module on the corner here. Probably knock over a bunch of trees and light posts along the way, or just remove them so that we don't knock everything over. But this giant module, which I believe is 4 base plates, hopefully we can just lift that out. There we go. When I go about placing it, we'll probably have to do it differently just because I don't think we'll be able to lift it up like that. And the other one I'll probably have to do from the other side. After I remove the row of trees and probably move this base plate, I should be able to slide this section over and out. So I think this is where we're gonna start. Just behind the campground. Perfect. I think slow and steady is gonna be the key here for the mountains. Whoa, I should probably remove those. Why do that though? I think slow and steady is going to be the key just because they're huge. They take a lot of parts and therefore they take a long time to build, but we're finally starting the project. We're continuing to work on it here on August, why did I say that? August 17th. So it's an exciting day, that's for sure. The first thing I did was redo my outline with 2x4 green brick. And then in behind those green bricks, I put 1x1s where they're staggered and then 2x4s. So now when I take more green brick and start to build upward, I've got it fully supported. My goal with this build is to make it very, very, very strong. So for the base layer, I need to do that with 2x4 brick. And just kind of build up from here. And some of them will be staggered 2 studs, so we have like flat spots just to change up the dimension a bit. And just sort of throw down parts and slowly build my way up and increase the back supports so that everything's fully supported. And then eventually we can transition into dark gray brick and also rock panels to get us up to that vertical distance, because this is quite a high distance. But because we have that grade of the campground here, we've got to sort of continue that, and also residential street is right here, and that's actually built up off the ground as well. And I'm referring to the height difference between the 2 platforms. You see that? So we do have 6 studs of sidewalk there, which I will be ripping out and replacing with the start of the mountain. So I need to factor that into my design, and I actually need to move this entire platform over a little bit. It looks like it's hanging over top of the sidewalk a little bit, so I will have to make that adjustment. Getting everything lined up is going to be difficult, so I've got to factor that in. Also the campground grade, and over here where we have that other project that I want to work on, which is actually going to be a mine. There's going to be like an entrance to the mine. I'm going to have to build this up here, and then we've got more rock work that needs to go right here, and you can see there's only 1.5 base plates between this section. So when I have this slight grade that we're building up there now, I've got to decide what's going to happen over here and what this area is going to look like, because all of these things need to come together in the end. So it's quite a complex puzzle. We are 4 bricks up off the plate. So the support structure in the back was supported by a couple 1x2s and a 2x4 coming off one of the layers, just because there's no sense in filling that in completely with bricks, so you sort of hollow it out. And I'm going to continue building up, and once I put on the next layer of brick, then I'll be left with 2 studs again. So I'll have to use some 1x2s and do the same thing. Of course, there's lots of different ways of doing this, but just using the parts that I have. And I can build up with another 2x4 bridging onto that support, and then continue building up and fill in my spaces on that 2x4 and repeat that. And then when I get up here, do it again, so we can bring in maybe, I don't know, like one of these or whatever we have, the random colored ones, and get up to the same height again. And come across with a 2x4 in random color, and just sort of keep going. But eventually, I'm gonna have to lock all these bricks in because this is just a staircase effect. So I'll have to grab a 2x6, and we'll have to introduce a row of 2x6s, or just offset it. So I like start it with a 2x6, because when I start it with a 2x6 and then continue with 2x4s, it's gonna lock the seam in. Ideally, I would like to lock it all in, every single layer, but the back support structure becomes weird because the support structure is right between the seam of the bricks. So I like to keep that consistent as far as I possibly can, or as tall as I possibly can, because you're going to use way less bricks, and it just interlocks the seams, and then the top layer can interlock everything and it becomes rock solid. So I'm just going to continue with this method pretty much all the way up to our black 16x16 Technic panels. We're officially 12 bricks up. Started using some lattice elements and 2x6s for support. And look at that, we've got some other colors mixed in as well, the dark green and the dark gray. Now we've built up all the way to the first layer. Try to round out this corner a bit. I don't want this thing to look square, so we've got to make sure we round it out as best we can. But with that said, I also don't want to like round it out to the point that we're significantly reducing the amount of space that we have to work with to increase the height of the mountain. But put some corner rock panels in here to try and round out this corner. Originally it was looking a bit squarish, and I think we can also work hard to round it out with more texture on the outside. Also, we've got like the start of a swerve inward here, because this is where we're going to go toward peak number 2, because it's going to be like twin peak, and this is not the max height. There's going to be another layer on top of this. So the next thing that we need to do is start working up, and we're actually going to do that using the rock panels, just getting in another texture, and also it's going to get us up in fewer studs. So we can start using rock panels and build it up here, and then probably extend this out, giving us more space to go vertical within the next tier. So everything's going smoothly. However, we ran into our first major complication, and I've got to perform some major surgery on this build now. This half here is all good. So after using those big tall lattice pieces, I essentially just went up with like inverted slopes, and then you can see there's a big gap there, but I actually just bridged across by creating my own brick. So essentially this plate on the top here is an 8 wide brick, because I supported it or increased the thickness of it by just using 2 plates. And of course there's 3 plates per brick. So by putting 2 plates on the bottom or on the front edge and then a brick on the back, it actually worked out perfectly with the math, so I could bridge across onto these big supports. And now it's fully supported, although it just needs to be pushed down. more in some areas. So that's how I was able to bridge across to the same height as the Technic panels on this side and also on this side here. Originally it was looking a bit squarish, but then I decided to remove one of the 8x8s because I essentially created like this right angle, but then I removed it and I actually filled it in with one of the corner rock panels. And of course it's the same on this side here. But this one, we decided to do it a little bit differently. Rather than using the extension, we just supported off the Technic uprights here, and we just used a pin. And look at that, it's perfect. I did that by design because I thought, oh yeah, well, that's gonna be perfect because we have these two studs that we can work with and we can build up and use those as our supports. But then when we got to the top, we started to notice this. It's like a little half plate separation. So we're like, oh no, well maybe things aren't pushed down well enough, keep building, push it down, make sure it's all pushed down. And then we got to over here and it's like, well, what the heck, there's still half plate separation. And I didn't know this, but when you compare the height of things that are pinned into these uprights here, it's off by a half plate. So there's a 1x2x5, so it's 5 bricks tall plus 2 bricks. And at first glance, you're like, oh yeah, well that's perfect, it's the same height. But then you really, really closely look at it and you see that it's off by a fraction of a plate. Like this right here is taller. And when I originally came up with the substructure, I didn't notice that. So now I need to go through here and perform a major surgery because it's all supported off that, and I just can't have that in the base structure for the build. I know it's all modular, so we're only building up to here and it'd be fine, but just knowing that that is off by a half plate thickness is gonna bother me. So yeah, I've got to remove this Technic top, the 16x16s that are all pinned together, get in there, and then just move these supports forward 2 studs probably, and then just build down. In fact, I think this height is going to be approximately the same height as one of those lattice pieces, and then just not use this moving forward. I thought that was going to be awesome, but it turns out it's off by a half plate. So yeah, major surgery time. See, maybe we should have went this route on this half as well, because this uses a lot more pieces. This is actually really strong here, so all I have to do is just sort of force it out. So, not a major process here. Don't have to be too invasive, not too bad at all actually. Just sort of get it all free floating and then just get in there with a 10 tall pillar. Easy peasy. Cool. Yeah, not too bad. I like that. Rather than making a bunch of pillars, I actually only made 3. So there's one right there on the end, one in the center behind that gray one, and another one on the end over here. And then I stretched 2 1x16 bricks all the way across, and that supports the bricks on top. So that saved a bunch of pieces. And of course I did the same thing on this side here. And with those adjustments made, the dark gray now sits flush with the black up top there. So that's perfect. And now everything is hunky-dory. We're good. That's awesome. So I can start using some of the rock panels. I think using them abruptly actually might look a little bit strange. So I'm gonna have to use more brick. We ordered a mass amount of brick the other day. Well, not a mass amount, but a lot of it. And we used most of the 2x4s already because obviously this takes a lot of brick. That's why we want to use a combination of the two, but we're gonna have to do a hybrid, that's for sure, moving up to the next level. But I'm just thinking to myself here, maybe we shouldn't start working on the next level stuff. Maybe these mountains should be built tier by tier, because I would hate to build all the way up on one side and then run into a complication down the road. You know what I mean? Like maybe we should just work up to the first tier all the way around, 360 degrees, and then start working on the next tier after that. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Just because I foresee us running into problems doing it the other way. Like if I build this chunk and then work on the next chunk, I think it's just got to be built tier by tier, like a cake. What do you think? I don't know. I sort of want to place this and make sure what we've done is working. So let's do that. So at first glance, I need to round out this side that's facing the residential area a bit more. I think I need to have it like bulge toward that sidewalk that I was referring to near the beginning of this video. So I guess my plan should be to bring this all the way to the edge of the plate and then actually have the mountain start on that 6 studs of sidewalk so that we can try and get it a little more curved here. And then you can see I already made the rough draft over there behind Ninjago pop out a bunch. So I hope that works. I want to try and maximize the height, but I also I have to make sure that it doesn't look square. I think by tapering it inward over there, that's going to help a bunch. So if I keep bringing it in and then back out and sort of around the second peak, I think that'll help this side. But I'm loving it so far. I think it looks great. Like, look at that. We've got a backdrop for the campground now, which is going to be amazing. And I think we're off to a really good start, but I also think it's imperative to get the first layer done all the way around the base. So I guess with that said, the next modules that we're going to be working on are these ones right here. And I think I need to bring this either significantly outward, like I was mentioning, or significantly inward, and then outward again to give it a unique shape. So maybe I start tapering it inward and then outward again, just to give it like a dynamic shape. Because it's really easy just to like build it straight across to maximize your space, but then you end up with a square. So I've got to make sure I do that right. But I think over here you can see how it tapers inward again. I think that really works. And another thing that I need to work on here is actually doing all the rock work along here behind Ninjago. And then I need to get the detailed water plates done behind Ninjago as well. So yeah, a big process. But hey, at least the first section's done. Well, I guess just the first ridge is done. And when I say done, I mean the base construction for the first layer, just like the brick stuff, not all the detail, the trails, the vegetation, the sloping, all that type of stuff that you've seen me do so many times before. But I think I just need to go around and do the base construction for the first layer, then the second layer, then the third layer, then the peak, and then go from there. That's awesome though. I'm pretty excited. That took Mrs. Bricksie and I an entire day, plus I did a little bit yesterday as well. So not too bad. Another effort like that, we'll have the other side done where the Ninjago temples are gonna go. And then another effort like that, we'll get the next layer done. And then another effort like that, we'll get the peak done. And then we can start working on the base construction, like that being the skeleton structure for the next mountain. And all that. What's gonna be the timeline on this project? I have no idea. I have no idea. We'll just take it one day at a time, as we always do here in the LEGO studio. All right, have a great day. Bye for now.